Starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, and welcome to our DASA Master Series webinar. Before we get started, let me first check if you can see this slide and hear me talk. If you were to kindly answer the poll questions, then I can see if you could have seen my slide and hear me talk. And I see that you can, so I'm going to close this poll. I'll switch back to the presentation. Thank you so much. Okay, that's in order. Let's see. Yes. Welcome. Before we get started, let me introduce myself. My name is Pim Pasman. I'm the product development manager for ITpreneurs as my day job, and as a side job, I'm also involved in the DevOps Agile Skills Association in that same position. For today, this is the agenda. Here's a quick look. Most important, of course, is Rick's presentation. But first, let me give you a quick overview of what is the DevOps Agile Skills Association about. DASA, as it's also known, is an open global initiative to provide individuals, teams, and organizations a competence model and accreditation scheme for DevOps skills development. We are an independent and open association made up of over 50 plus forerunner members with 80 plus training partners. Our objective is to build awareness and provide thought leadership, as well as practical guidance for DevOps competence development. Our current featured presentation for today is about DASA principles, competence model, and the fundamentals course. But before I introduce Rick, our guest presenter for today, I would like to ask you a couple of poll questions to ensure that we can learn a bit about those who have joined us today. So let me get started with two poll questions. First one is, what is your experience with DevOps? If you are so kind to answer these questions. Okay. Looking good. About half you have voted now. Oh, it's a nice mix, this one. Let me share the results with you. So it's a bit of a mixed bag right now. So no gurus today, but still there are a few experts out there, and some people with some experience. But this is interesting for today. Okay. Let me also then do the second one directly afterwards. And this one is, what is your interest in DevOps? Are you just curious, or do you actually have some responsibility within your company to implement this? Okay, also looking good. Okay, thank you so much for voting, and again I'll share the results. This one has 2/3 of you want to learn more about DASA's competence and qualification, so that's a good one for you, Rick. Let me hide the results first and then go back to the presentation. So let me just introduce you to you, Rick, our guest presenter for today. Rick is a DevOps thought leader and key contributor for the development of the DASA competence model and the courseware curriculum. He has a PhD in software engineering and more than 10 years of experience in the business IT domain. Currently, Rick works as a business unit manager of the IT Architects business unit at Xebia. The service is part of the Xebia Group. Xebia is an international IT consultancy organization where craftsmanship, knowledge sharing, and innovation are key success factors. Guiding customers in their digital transformations and DevOps are central themes in Xebia's proposition. Rick is also a member of the editorial board of DASA and has contributed to the development of the DevOps Fundamentals courseware and the upcoming practitioner courseware that DASA will soon launch. He also helped define the core foundations of DASA, including the set of DevOps principles DASA lives by, and the competence framework that is the basis for the professionalization DevOps knowledge and skills. Rick, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Pim. Am I audible like this, by the way? Just checking. I guess so. Thanks for this opportunity to say a few words about DASA and mainly the principles that are the foundation behind DASA's mission, our competence model, and I'll illustrate how this all comes together in the first product that DASA has developed, the fundamental scores. Let me start by if the mouse works, let's check. Yes. Let me start by explaining what was one of the main drivers also for me personally to contribute to DASA and take up the roles that Pim just described. If you look at especially the IT domain, and of course we're familiar with all kinds of trends also in history. DevOps is nowadays one of the hot topics. If you look at projected job trends, the figures show that in a number of years from now, hundreds of thousands DevOps related jobs are sought in the market. At the same time, fairly little is actually known about what it entails or what it should be, with the risk of that it is becoming an acronym plotted on basically everything related to IT, and I think that's dangerous. And when we looked into it in more detail, we found that there was definitely a need for a broader standard, a frame of reference, a way to professionalize and define this field, and also advance the way of working and the state of the practice as a community. This is exactly what DASA aims to provide. Go to the next slide. Let's check if it works. Yes. So here we see the main mission and purpose of DASA summed up in 5 bullets. So basically the main thing is to promote knowledge and skills framework for DevOps. We have defined a set of principles, which I will describe one by one in a minute. And based on this, we create knowledge and skills, and through training products, DASA helps establishing and improving the state of the practice. The principles are joined by a competency framework, which helps individuals, teams, and organizations to think in a holistic way how to develop skills and knowledge around DevOps and how to make sure that we use the full potential of what DevOps can be. Very important to note is that DASA has an open character, so it's a community-driven approach. So there's a lot of evangelization involved. It's definitely vendor neutral. And the qualification framework and the DASA products, like training products, are built with all the community forerunner members. So we're really proud to see that soon after the launch in April 13th this year, we have now more than 50 forerunners and more become active contributors. And also many training providers worldwide are adopting the products that DASA builds because there's a clear gap to fill. Of course, there are all kinds of other providers and organizations offering all kinds of solutions and services around DevOps, but often this is not vendor neutral. And if it is, then at least it's often a focus on the automation and the tool and technology side. And what we will see is that DevOps, if done correctly, according to DASA, is much more than that part. That's an important differentiator and something that would help really changing the practice, because although it might sound as a surprise or it is dissatisfactory for you, the majority of the impact will be made by the people, the culture, and the processes side, and not so much the tools and technology side. Then going to the principles, there are 6 core principles defined by DASA, and in it we try to really focus on the individuals and also the teams in which individuals work together to highlight what kind of behavior, what kind of way of working needs to be established. Because after all, a working definition for DASA around DevOps is that this is a culture for creating high-performance IT organizations. And that involves quite a lot of elements. So starting with the first one, it's actually starting with realizing for who are we creating delight and value. If you look at IT organizations nowadays, often many professionals, although working hard and being very knowledgeable and skilled, have some kind of disconnect with the end users, the customers of the organization you work at. And DevOps is typically a mechanism to shorten this feedback loop and to be more aware of the customers that we serve. So customer-centric action is really about taking the best practices we have from the Agile and Lean fields to work in a more experimental way, in the sense that there are short feedback loops, that there's direct end-user contact, and there's also a way to innovate and to learn from MVPs, minimal viable products, to test out new ideas, to see how the market responds to that. And this leads to a much better agility as an organization to align its products to what the customers get, and to learn what the market wants. This in contrast to organizations who are much less agile and who take sometimes months or years to bring out new products or to fix certain errors. And this is in a wider trend of digital transformation or acceleration that we see an increasing need for increasing the velocity to make sure that you bring things faster to market. This is the main driver for making the DevOps movement so popular, because organizations cannot wait anymore for an IT organization that says no. So whatever we can do to make sure that we reduce the cycle times and to have more time left to talk to the customers, the better. And all the other principles relate to this line of reasoning. If you look at the second principle, create with the end in mind, this is what helps establishing a culture where people organize themselves around products and think in services to the customers, and not so much in disciplines. We're all organized around the concept of building great stuff and customer delight. We need an engineering mindset, craftsmanship to build great products, often software products, because we all know software is eating the world, and being different and unique often involves, for example, some mobile application or software-driven solution. So making it more and more important to have software engineering skills in your company, embedded in all those product teams. But those product teams need to realize what is the actual product that we deliver and organize around that. And this also relates to the third principle. There needs to be an end-to-end responsibility in those teams. In many IT organizations, we are still organized like waterfall processes. So there are teams who develop software code, for example. There are teams who do tests. There are teams who focus on the integration. There are teams who are doing business analysis. There are teams working in IT operations. And although the skills and knowledge areas are all very valuable and they will remain as such, DevOps stands for a totally different way of delivering great value in a quick way to customers. And that means that you organize yourself in end-to-end teams. Vertical teams that have all the skills and knowledge available to really bring something live, preferably daily or multiple times per day. And that means that you need to be accountable, but also in full control and having all the skill sets to be responsible until the product is actually end of life. Not only live as in production, but you remain responsible for its performance and its evolution after that. And this is really different from, for example, typical IT development versus IT operations departments in organizations where the former is focusing on developing new stuff and the latter is making sure everything keeps running. This is changed dramatically by adopting DevOps. And this means that it has also quite a dramatic impact on what kind of profiles, what kind of skills are needed in those teams. You cannot have merely a tester, for example. The job of a tester, actually the function of testers, will disappear soon in IT. And that the same holds for many other functions like release managers, project managers. All those disciplines are important, but we need T-shaped profiles, people who have the necessary engineering skills, business analysis skills, also basic infrastructure skills to be really end-to-end responsible as a team. So what DASA is profoundly claiming is that we all need to organize ourselves in those teams, being end-to-end responsible, but also have a broader basic knowledge and skills on all those topics. And of course, as we will see later, you can specialize yourself in one or more topics, but we all need to speak the same basic language. Is this enough? No. Then still you need to add some other ingredients to your culture. That means that there needs to be somehow an urge, a standard way of continually improving yourself. Understanding that accelerating and bringing features live, making more customers happy is the core task, and whatever you can do to speed up, to build better products, the better. So there's a continuous improvement mindset where people start out new things, and if things fail or are not appreciated, then they quickly are redone. If errors are made in the process, the typical quote from a continuous delivery mindset is, if it hurts, do it more often, until you fix all the bottlenecks and you can experiment more, innovate faster. It's all about speed nowadays on the market. And the sixth principle, last but not least, is around automation. This is the best known principle around DevOps, because many software product companies, for example, highlight this part, especially because their products are organized around it. And fortunately, nowadays in the market, we are helped a lot by all the technology advancements that help accelerate your processes and your solutions. Because automation in the software delivery chain and also in the provisioning side, for example, replacing traditional infrastructure and data centers by cloud-native solutions, helps enormously to focus as a team more on the core tasks, which I explained before, and not so much on all the technicalities to bring new products live. So automate everything you can is a mindset that helps to make sure that you remove as much waste as possible in the whole life cycle, to build quality in and to maximize the flow. If we then look at the DASA competence framework, we see how these 6 principles have led to quite a holistic framework in which we plotted a number of knowledge and skill areas. We say that, of course, individual specialization is always needed, but the biggest trend and change over traditional organizations is that we need more versatile teams, end-to-end responsible teams, and in those teams, all members need to have basic knowledge and skills around these topics. And what you can see in this list is that it is quite versatile. It's not only about coding, for example, although this is an important part. Engineering skills, programming is at the core of product teams nowadays in organizations that adopt DevOps successfully, simply because IT is a big differentiator for building value to your customers nowadays. Continuous delivery and test specification and automation help to quickly bring the code to production. Combine this with infrastructure engineering and knowing what is possible nowadays on this aspect greatly benefits teams. Security, risk and compliance should not be an afterthought, especially in corporate environments. This is something that also in DevOps teams need to be addressed, not by separate departments preferably, but by having team members working with the same concepts and understanding that security is something that needs to be built in from the start. But what you also see is that the same team needs to be in direct contact with the end customers. They need to optimize for the business value they deliver. They need to understand the market, business analysis, and they need to design their solutions accordingly with architecture and design skills. You would say this is a lot and this is impossible to find in one person. Well, maybe yes and no. And no in terms of becoming an expert in all of those aspects. Yes, when it comes in a basic vocabulary and common understanding and basic skills. This is what DASA promotes. And this is why we provide trainings to a large audience, as we'll see later when we look at the fundamentals course. Not just people in operations or in development, but also the IT managers, the architects, the program managers, to really make sure that we are on the same page on what we would try to achieve. And a DevOps transformation is involving all those typical roles. That's why we also focus on skills areas, because knowledge areas is one thing, but creating a culture, which is the end goal, involves also a number of other aspects. We already talked about the continuous improvement mindset, the fourth skill area. The first one is what we find most important, because this is something that needs to be a mindset from all the individuals in the teams and in the organization. A certain courage to dare to experiment, to fail fast, to learn continuously, and to improve where possible. Team building relates to the fact that instead of specializing as individuals and hoping for the best that things get aligned, we organize around end-to-end high-performance teams, and team building skills are crucial there as well. And DevOps leadership means that in an organization, a certain autonomy, mastery, purpose needs to be given to those teams, because if a traditional IT management stays in place, just like with Agile transformations, then it will fail horribly. So you need to also start from the top. DevOps is known for being a grassroots movement. This is how it originated. At the same time, we see that large sponsorship and commitment from higher management in organizations is crucial for its success, to let teams organize themselves differently. Otherwise, the incentives and the targets will make sure that that certain gaps will exist. If you plot those 12 areas on the circle at the right side, you see that we also made a spider web of it. That means that there's a 5-point maturity level behind it. So for each of the areas, you can be ranging from a novice to a master. And this is how we build products, plot those products and what they aim to achieve on this model, to see how we can guide people in this maturity model to improve them in a tailor-made way, because everybody has its comfort zone and skill sets at the moment. By forming teams, this model can help you in organizations to create high-performance teams and to know also where the knowledge and skill gaps are. In DASA, there's an upcoming DevOps assessment that helps organizations to do exactly this. When we look at the qualification program then, that DASA established, we see now the following products that have surfaced. The first is the DevOps Fundamentals course, who leads up to a competent level, the second level of 5, which means that it's still fairly basic and a level of understanding that helps being on the same page in terms of concepts, but it doesn't automatically mean that you know all the tips and tricks and how to put them in practice. For this, we have developed a DevOps practitioner that will soon be released, a 2-day course. And at the expert level, several specializations emerge who focus on specific aspects of this same competence model that I shown previously, and help specialize a bit more in the transformation side at scale at organizations, or at the business analysis and specification side, or more on the delivery and creating value programming side. So you could, depending on your current role, find a typical niche for this. But you see, and that's great to a trend, that many people switch priorities and switch career paths through this DASA qualification program. And after having obtained a basic layer of knowledge and skills through the fundamentals and practitioner, we see people switching from a traditional ops environment to, for example, a more customer-oriented job, which is focused more on specification and verify. And so this is nice because it helps also from a talent management development point of view. So let me show you quickly how this has resulted in the first product that DASA built and provides at the moment, and it's great to see how large the popularity and practice is of this 3-day course. I played a role in the development, and we did it with various foreign organizations that have aligned themselves to DASA. And it's great to see how you can stand on the shoulders of giants, because we, of course, have captured all the best practices available in the Agile, in the Lean, in the automation space to make sure that there's a comprehensive 3-day course for the taking. And the objectives of this course are as follows. It should provide an extensive introduction to the core principles of Agile and DevOps. All the 12 knowledge and skills competence areas come one by one to the table. There's quite some interaction and discussions with the attendees throughout the 3 days, which is important because it's only, let's say, sending knowledge in the classroom, then people can also read the book. It's really about translating this to what you see and what you do in practice. And there's a separate course book, including exercises, pointers for further reading, which really helps to show some direction and provide a nice frame of reference for people interested in these IT trends. There's an exam involved. Multiple choice closed book exam, which takes 1 hour, can also be in a web proctored format, and there's a passing rate of 65%. At the moment, I think the numbers vary between 75 and 80% in the field, which we are continuously monitoring and improving. What I personally like about this is that we found a nice mix between not having too big of a threshold, especially because the fundamentals is aimed at a large audience, to show them how basically the new world of IT is working and how to get a role in it, to basically still have a job in the future of IT organizations. At the same time, it's also not a no-brainer. It's something that you should definitely study for. And be in the classroom for. It's not something that you can pass blindly, I would say. So this shows the quality, and the feedback from over the world is really good, which motivates us to continue. A sneak preview in what is covered in the course outline is you see here in the table at the left the core modules. After a course introduction and some core concepts to DevOps, which we call the DevOps introduction, there are actually a number of key themes that we address, and those are important to understand. The culture, because in the end we are all doing this to create a high-performance IT culture in organizations, and then we also focus on how to organize the work, how to build those teams, and how should they work together. Processes, the workflow, who does what, how does it work in a corporate context, and then also automation. What can we benefit from if we do automation right in software delivery, but also in provisioning. Last but not least, measurement and improvement. Being able to have a continuous improvement mindset means that you build in quality and measurement on those quality aspects from the start. The team should be able to understand how they behave. There needs to be KPIs, and it should be in their face if certain things take too much time or take manual action, or customers are dissatisfied, and they should always aim for improving this. And this is an important part of creating the right culture. This is why we spend a separate module for this. And at the end of the first day, in the afternoon, there's time to practice, having a recap, and also follow the exam. So this makes the 3-day course complete in the sense that after the 3-day course, people have the opportunity to be certified DevOps fundamentals immediately. And this is again the contents and the various modules with a few examples of knowledge and skills that have been added to the program to plot it on the competency model that I explained earlier. What you see is that we deliberately choose to offer a broad basis. So on all the aspects, people get to the second step of the 5-point ladder by following the DevOps fundamentals, and the learning outcomes and as such the exam questions exactly test this. The practitioner will focus mostly on the blue ones, the skill areas. So the practitioner course puts things in practice and leads to the third level on the skills areas. And the expert modules, which follow later, early next year, they will be released. They focus more on the combination of blue and red again and go to level 4. Here again, we see how the various topics are addressed in the various modules of the table as shown earlier. So you see that, for example, in the second module, everything is high level, in a high level way addressed. And in the various modules afterwards, after the core concepts, we go in a more deep dive way and play with it, discuss with it, and make sure that everything is understood. So this is an overview of what we aim to provide as DASA, what the rationale behind the core principles and the competency framework was, and how this has resulted in the first training product that has seen the light before summer and has gained quite an incredible popularity so far, which is great, and an acknowledgement for all the people who contributed to DASA. And it would be great if you join as well or benefit from it. So depending on your interest and your role, let's stay in touch. And I think there's quite some time now for having questions. Maybe take some time to post them.
Thank you so much, Rick, for talking us through the DASA principles, the competence model, and of course the DevOps fundamentals courseware. And as Rick said, before we leave you, there is still time for us to answer some of your questions. So if you would like to type in any questions you have, if we can't attend to them right now, we will ensure that you will get an answer by email. So I'll give you some moment to start typing. Okay, I see first one coming in, Rick. So
yes.
The question is around the 6 DASA DevOps principles. Can you perhaps explain how these 6 relate to the comms aspects that many people phrase?
Oh, that's a good question. Yes.
Why does DASA have its own set? That's set as well.
Yeah, it's a good question. People like Gene Kim and other DevOps gurus in the field have come up with what is called CALMS: culture, automation, learning, measurement, and sharing, which are core themes. Which you also, the careful observer, has seen those aspects almost literally come back in the modules of the fundamentals course. But what we really wanted to make explicit in the principles that DASA came up with is not so much the theme, but talk more directly at the kind of behavior, the kind of attitudes and way of working that you expect to see in organizations to make this work. So that's why we translated the main elements from CALMS into more tangible, actionable phrases. And sketch as such, like I explained, what kind of organization emerges as such. For example, the customer-centric action leads to a trigger to product teams. And the product teams need to have end-to-end responsibility and autonomy. And that means that they need to have T-shaped profiles. And they also need to continuously get in the game and improve. And then automation is a little bit an outlier, but is one-on-one one of the CALMS principles. So there's a slight difference in phrasing it, but it's definitely covered because we have not the intention at DASA to come up with a new set of knowledge and skills. On the contrary, it is all covered well, especially all the lean and agile and continuous delivery best practices that are plenty around, and many books have been the basis of what we provide in the training products. But it's a good question because comms is often used when people talk about DevOps. Well, we try to phrase it a little bit differently.
Okay, very good. So last one, Rick, for you. If you look at the DevOps Fundamentals courseware that you've shown just now, it's a 3-day course, but there are quite a number of topics covered there. Is it not too big of a scope for DevOps in this way? It's can it be covered in the 3 days?
Yeah, we have some mixed results from the field. Some colleagues from Xibia who have delivered some trainings, but also other training providers a couple back. That it depends a bit on the type of classroom and the type of participant. But overall, it seems to nicely fit. But it's definitely a lot to grasp depending on how much you already know from those Agile and Lean principles. I saw in this audience that many people have some basic understanding already, and maybe have roles and see things happening and changing around them in organizations. And people have always some touch points and some things they recognize in the field. Almost everybody will have a few fairly new areas covered in the 3-day course. So if it would all be new, then I would say it's quite a lot to swallow in the 3-day course. And often those participants take maybe a few days or weeks to prepare after the course for the exam and then go for the exam. But many others are provided by the fundamentals course a recap of some of the concepts that they're already familiar to. For example, by having followed the Scrum Master training or a training in continuous delivery, but seeing it a bit better in a holistic perspective and connecting the dots. And this helps to building this broader frame of reference. The other reason that it still fits in the 3-day course is that you're not expected to directly the day after change everything your daily practice. It's not that's translatable to your daily work. The practitioner course does focus on this. So if you put that goal into perspective, then we have a 5-day training combined of a fundamentals and practitioner, and that seems to fit nicely.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks so much, Eric. So that's all the time we have, unfortunately, for today. So I'm going to wrap it up for you. If you want to reach out to us, these are our contact details. If you have some other questions as well, and the questions that have been posed and not have been answered, and we will get back to you on those. Thank you right now for attending, and I hope you've learned something and are interested in either joining DASA and will join us in the future. Thank you so much for attending, and this is a good day for you.